No, you don't have to click off the video. No, you're not experiencing deja vu. Yes, this is the second ModRetro M64 review you're seeing on the channel, because if you watched the initial video, you would have seen that after the unboxing, I basically got run into with a bunch of different technical issues that basically prevented me from completing a review the way I wanted to. And I stated in that video that I was in contact with ModRetro, and since then, I've talked to the head of engineering, and two of the bugs that I was able to show them, they were able to replicate in their offices. And when you actually update your software, when you open your ModRetro M64 box, one of those bugs fixes is going to be coming from me and my reporting. And basically what happened was there were two different software issues and one hardware issue on my console, and the hardware issue basically gave me a really bad situation with HDMI capture, both overloading the NVENC encoder on my 3080 Ti as well as producing vertical banding in the HDMI signal in and of itself. There was no software that could fix that. It was a hardware flaw on a pre-release unit, so ModRetro sent another console, a retail version out, so we're going to be completing the review today. And to say that my experience on this new piece of hardware is night and day different would be an understatement. All the problems I encountered when I first started trying to capture this for the review have been completely cleared up and are nothing you will ever experience whatsoever. Before you get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But when you update your console, you're going to see the following message: fixed HDMI RGB color quantization on some displays. Basically, all the colors are being overdriven and oversaturated. So if you saw a couple of the other channels on YouTube, M64 reviews, you might have noticed that the analog side-by-side footage with the 3D, the colors on the M64 were definitely way more saturated and at some points in time blown out. That has been completely fixed. I submitted that bug report and luckily they were able to replicate it, so that is going to be a good thing. But obviously you're watching real hardware captures off the ModRetro M64 right now, so clearly this new console has no issue actually producing HDMI. So we can stop talking about the overall bug fixing and get into the review, the one that I want to deliver to you guys the first time. But of course, I always review what it is I find once the embargo lifts, and the reality situation is what I found on the 21st is completely different than what I'm finding on the 29th when I record this video. But honestly, this is completely different, and I would say, obviously being ModRetro FPGA Zoom's boss's code underlying this thing, it's doing an extremely good job of replicating an N64. We're going to get into some overclocking tests, we're going to get into some other kind of cycle accuracy tests in the video, but if you want the TLDR, for a first draft, the software you're going to be getting out of the box does an excellent job of being a Nintendo 64 for whatever you want. And I went over a lot of the overall custom mode lines, scan lines, and everything else they can play around with in the initial video, but I will say the suite of visual options here for scan lines, for aperture grills, for all the different gammas, and a bunch of other settings that you're probably not even going to know what they do. It is all encompassing, and my only warning to you is don't pixel peep too hard, or you're going to end up not playing the actual game and spending all this time in the menu kind of going over the scan lines and filters. And somebody on Reddit asked if those scan lines and filters end up making the image too dark because there really isn't an HDR implementation the same way that other hardware may have it. I didn't think so whatsoever, but you clearly saw it there. You can replay it and take a look to see. I do overdrive a little bit of the filter just to get a little more actual brightness back, but otherwise it really does look good to my eye. And that really is the fun thing about doing a review like this, and what I wanted to do in the first place. Take a look at games that everyone's familiar with and tell you guys whether or not when you pop the cartridge in, you're going to have a fun time. And that's exactly what you're going to get here. Now I did have a question about saving and resetting the core on the EverDrive consoles, because you need to be able to reset the console on an N64 if you want to save the game to the cartridge. And in previous iterations of the software, apparently there wasn't a reset core option. So we'll go to the menu here, we'll go ahead and reset the core and make sure that it saves on the EverDrive X5, because that was the biggest question I had from a bunch of people. You'll see the Elgato background software, because it does basically lose sync for a moment. The save is there 100% good to go, so you will be fine on the EverDrive line of flash cartridges. Let's do the first soundtrack sample, then we can talk about the overclocking performance on the ModRetro M64.
Why the big hurry?
If Dr. Carroll is not extracted tonight, Datadyne will put him through mind conditioning, and we'll lose our best chance of finding out what Datadyne are up to.
Are they all expendable?
Don't joke. You have to be careful, Joanna. Code keys will only operate while the owner is alive. If you kill them, the key is useless. Armed guards are a different matter, of course.
What's the target location?
Work your way down the building to the ground level. Dr. Cowell will be in a research lab somewhere in the underground facility.
How will I recognize him?
We don't have an image record, and we can't find any official files.
So that definitely sounds like Perfect Dark to me, but you leave me a comment down below and you tell me what you think, because I love to say in videos, I have two tin ears, and finding small audio discrepancies or issues is not my strong suit. Now what you're watching here is Perfect Dark, and I'm overclocking it as far as the ModRetro M64 will push it. The unfortunate part about the ModRetro M64 along with the Analogue 3D is there really isn't any built-in frame counter for me to be able to side-by-side these things and give you empirical evidence over which one runs faster. And if you're wondering, no, there's not going to be direct head-to-head footage between M64 and Analogue 3D in this video. If you guys want to see that, leave me a comment down below and I will make it as a third part, because I really want to focus on this hardware and then compare it against other options out there in the future. But I will say it's definitely running a hell of a lot faster than a stock clock N64, and no, I am not using the performance patch for Perfect Dark either. I always run my tests on the base ROMs, that way if anything goes wrong, I know whether or not it's the file or the hardware or the FPGA. So as far as playing Perfect Dark on something like the M64 with the highest overclock, you're definitely getting a faster speed. But if I had to guess just based upon my memory, I would say the Analogue 3D is probably getting like 3-4 frames more per second in certain heavier spots. But of course, Analogue 3D's performance on overclocking has improved as the consoles got more firmware updates. So really in a year, the ModRetro M64 could be rivaling it, could be exceeding it. We're just going to have to wait and see. But honestly, this is a hell of a lot better than playing on stock speeds, because for me personally, Perfect Dark is unplayable when you don't have an overclock. That's really just the situation. Yes, it was amazing back when it came out, but today not as much so. So now that you know how the overclocking works, we'll get into that again in just a moment. But before you leave the comment down below about who owns ModRetro, yes, I know, and again I am stating, this is what people want me to cover, this is what people request of me. I'm known for covering FPGA hardware, and I leave it up to each and every person to decide what it is they want to consume or not want to consume. So you can continue to email me all sorts of amazing things, like my home address, like what you want to do to me, my wife, and my dogs. We're still going to be watching ModRetro M64 reviews on the channel, because I believe that people can make up their own minds, and you're not going to make up my mind for me because you email me. Honestly, some of the rambling emails are absolutely just over the top, and maybe if you want to see one, I'll publish one on Twitter after this video comes out. But I just figured I would address that because the first video absolutely just consumed my phone with so many notifications. But that's not what this review is about. It's about hardware, and that's what I'm here to give you guys information on. And if you're wondering why I'm not actually shooting the enemy here, I'm just kind of seeing how the lighting model reacts, because you do get that real-time lighting as they shoot. You can actually get that reflection on the wall. So sometimes when people are watching this footage, they're wondering, why am I playing a game a certain way? It's not because I'm really trying to interact with the game in the same way you would. I'm trying to see what happens around the edges, and I would say here, with all the lighting, with all the enemies, a very good frame rate, and I'm sure with updates, you might even get an extra frame or two out of this in the future. But overclocking worked great on the ModRetro M64 in Perfect Dark, and don't forget, overclocking can crash games on M64 and Analogue 3D and on Mister, because some games just do not allow for it to be run that fast. It's not a hardware problem, it is a game problem. But one more soundtrack sample, I'll be right back with a lot more testing for you. So if you know me and you watch the channel, you'll know I believe one thing to be true about the N64. Bomberman Hero, in my opinion, is the best game on the hardware, at least for me. The first time I played this game, I fell in love with it in the 90s, and if there was anything wrong with the Bomberman Hero soundtrack, I would be able to hear it in my ears, and I detect nothing. I love the music so much so that I actually have the vinyl collector's edition of the soundtrack in my album collection. Because yes, Video Game Esoterica basically will collect anything if it amuses him, including records, but that's honestly more my wife's thing, collecting those. but I have played this game since it came out in the 90s when I fell in love with it, and if there was anything wrong with Bomberman Hero, I would instantly be able to tell. Every single time there's new emulators for N64, new FPGA hardware, anything else, this is the first game I go to because it's the easiest for me to detect if there's any issues whatsoever. And along with the ModRetro M64 controller and the new firmware on the console, this is absolute perfection to me. There really isn't anything I could point to when it comes to Bomberman Hero that would be an issue. And that's the thing, I know this isn't going to be everyone's favorite test, but for me it is the most empirical test because I really do have to go on feel for these reviews. And as far as the speed is concerned of this game running, seems 100% identical to real N64 hardware, to Analogue 3D, to Mr. FPGA or anything else. And don't forget there is a static recomp of Bomberman Hero out there as well. If you like a lot more frames, it'll be there for you. Now going over to GoldenEye, this was a game that definitely ran at way lower of a frame rate than it should have when we actually tested out the hardware in the first place. But now with core updates that are going to be in your box, or honestly over there updated when you get your ModRetro consoles, this is definitely running a hell of a lot better, and with overclocking here, it is running faster than N64. I wouldn't say it's as dramatic as something like Perfect Dark because GoldenEye never got too terrible in the frame rate department, but more frames are always going to be welcome, and that's what you're going to be getting here. And in my experience of playing GoldenEye, again, just like Bomberman Hero and everything else I've tested in this revised review, I really don't have anything to point to say that it's not doing the proper job. Now again, there is a list on ModRetro's website of games that can have issues, and those are going to be patched up, and I did see an email go out talking about the different phases of updates as they're planning, and that's definitely going to be something that you see updated throughout the year. My hope is that the openness of the FPGA and all those documents get published so you can maybe see some people try to port some more cores over to it. But of course you buy a product based upon what is promised now, not what might happen in the future. So if you do want an FPGA N64, now that I have working ModRetro hardware and the software issues I was experiencing have been patched up and found by the company, it's really easy for me to say that this is definitely night and day improved from where it first came from when I first reviewed it. Let's do a soundtrack sample here of GoldenEye, then I'll kind of get into some more tests, including some more overclocking and even some resolution switching, because I know even though nobody asked me about that, it's something you might want to know about. But enjoy the music and I'll be right back. So now here's the test that actually no one asked me to run, but it's something that I always think about when I think of N64, when I think of actual real hardware, scalars, and actually upscaling an image, whether it's in post-processing or anywhere else. And that is the fact that some games on N64 like Resident Evil 2 alternate screen to screen depending on where you are between 240p and 480i. So we're going to see exactly how fast they'll switch to make sure you're going to have a seamless experience. And if you did ask me on Reddit or anywhere else to run some tests and I didn't get to them in this video, I apologize. I tried to include the ones that I remember and the ones that I think are going to make some good content, but I always say when I ask for requests, I can't promise I'm going to hit each and every one of them. So if I didn't hit yours, sorry about that. I did my best. But right here, you're going to see when we go from one screen to the other, and again, you're not going to see good gameplay. You will see the resolution switch. It does it quickly. You're right back into the action, and that's basically something that this game loves to do. It goes from 240p to 480i back and forth basically across almost the entirety of the game. So I want to make sure we don't have any dropouts in the image. We want to make sure that it actually does it quickly. I really have no complaints on this one. That's the same on Analogue 3D and the same on Mr. FPGA as well, so it's not like ModRetro M64 is doing something here that other consoles are not doing, but it is my expectation that we switch from one screen to the other quickly when we have that resolution change, and that's exactly how it's being handled here. But again, because the developer of the Mr. FPGA core worked with ModRetro on this, I really expected to see exactly what I'm seeing right here, and that's nothing different than what I am getting, so that is definitely a plus. Now let's move over to Beetle Adventure Racing, one because the intro here definitely does not hit the same overall frame pacing as the original N64 Unreal hardware, but that's a problem with basically every implementation of Beetle Adventure Racing and FPGA, at least to my memory. But two, this is a game that absolutely needs more frames per second, so we're doing an overclock test on this one, because I think of any game on the N64, the next one I would love to see get a static recomp would be Beetle Adventure Racing. And that kind of is the funny thing, we're talking about all of these different FPGA N64 consoles, but I'm sure in like 2-3 years time, every single game on the N64 is going to have a static recomp, and this will be the nostalgic way we play the games versus the new way we play, those being based on recomps and PC ports. Let's do a soundtrack sample, mostly so you can just look at the image pacing here and see how much smoother it is than if you've ever played this game before, so go ahead and catch the vibes. I'll be right back with a few more tests. So I would say this is definitely the most improved game on N64 with overclocking, because I love Beetle Adventure Racing, but if you play it on stock clocks, if you play it on real N64 hardware, or anywhere else without overclocking, the game definitely just runs too slow, and it definitely takes away from the fun factor of it. And that is why overclocking is such an important feature on these consoles, and why I do love to test it, because it really does take some games from what I would consider to be borderline unplayable, like Beetle Adventure Racing or Perfect Dark, and it brings them into the really fun category, because this is smooth frame pacing. You can definitely see it's running quicker, and no, I'm not going to bring up a stock example, this is really just an overclocking test. But honestly, the overclocking on the M64 is doing everything I need it to, and you do have different settings as well. And I will leave a link in the description below to a page and to a video from James Lambert that basically explain how each overclock setting actually articulates things, because that dude knows more about N64 and programming for it than basically anyone out there, and he ran some empirical tests about the speed, so you can see that, because that's not really what I get into here, the granular data and numbers. I'm here for the vibes. I'm here to tell you what it feels like to play something, and whether or not I think it's going to be a good product for you. So in that respect, compared to the original video, if this seems like something you want to pick up, I can tell you right now, in my experience with it, it's doing an effective job of being an N64 FPGA console. It works with the Summer Cart, it works with the EverDrives, you can save, and if you do want to pick up that ModRetro controller, that is definitely maybe the biggest accomplishment here whatsoever, because I've been playing around with this thing both on the ModRetro M64 review that I'm running right now, as well as capturing static recomps and PC ports of N64 games on my PC, even using it with Rosalie's Mupen GUI on Windows, and I will say I'm never going to use any other N64 controller ever again. It does exactly what I need. It is very close to perfect when it comes to analog values, and honestly it just is what I want. But one more soundtrack sample just so you can catch the vibes one more time, and I'll be right back with just a bit more.
Here we go. Performance for you. If you know the words, you can join in too. Put your hands together if you wanna clap as we take you through this monkey rap.
Okay, we really didn't need another soundtrack sample, but there's no way in hell I was letting you get out of this video without hearing the DK rap. And really, this is just a segue into testing the Vine cycle accuracy in the intro now that we have updated software on the ModRetro M64. But if I can sneak in the DK rap, you know damn well I'm going to do it, because it is still the best theme song of any game on N64, yes, even over Buck Bumble. And don't forget, Buck Bumble definitely hits a copyright flag these days with the music, so I can't let you listen to that whatsoever, because apparently that is just too good for YouTube. But honestly, it's a fun game, it's a fun soundtrack, and soon we're going to have not one but two recomps of the game. But in the meantime, let's take a look at how close Donkey Kong gets to the Vine, or not this time, because I will say it definitely has improved compared to the last time I took a look at it in that first ModRetro M64 review. But Donkey Kong is still going to miss, but he definitely gets closer. And as you play something like this is not going to affect your gameplay experience whatsoever. It is just a cycle accuracy test, but I knew people would ask for a rerun, and that's what happens. But going back to the original original capture when it wasn't overloading the encoder. You can see here the overall colors in Super Mario 64, especially that sun, are blown out and way too hot and just way too vibrant. And that was something again that I reported to ModRetro, and their head engineer got in touch with me via email, and 2 of the issues were confirmed to be replicatable. And like I said, those are being fixed up in software, and you'll never actually see this issue here, because if we go from my original capture when it wasn't overloading the encoder to the current capture on this most recent piece of hardware with the most recent software, it is definitely different and is definitely correct now. So my revised review of the ModRetro M64 is, if you want an N64 and FPGA, then this product is definitely doing everything that's promised on the box. It has a good roadmap for future updates, and it definitely is effective. And of course, there are competitive products out there, and they do an excellent job as well. So now you kind of know that basically, as far as the day one result of M64 is going to be concerned, it's like 95% of what Analogue 3D is doing, and maybe in the future it'll hit 100% parity or go beyond that. But buy for what it does today, not for the future. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.